Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I want to discuss two pieces of media about Grim Reapers. One is a book called A Dirty Job by Christopher Moore, which I recently read, and the other is the 2003 TV show Dead Like Me. Dead Like Me is about modern day Grim Reapers who have to keep living a normal existence while reaping souls on the side. The soon-to-be deceased name is given to a Reaper on a post-it note, and it's the Reaper's job to locate that person and reap their soul. A Dirty Job is about a modern-day Grim Reaper who has to keep living a normal existence while reaping souls on the side. The names of the recently deceased appear in a day planner, and it is the Reaper's job to locate that person and collect their soul. Both are dark comedies and obviously have very similar premises. Dead Like Me is one of my favorite shows of all time, and A Dirty Job was a book. So let me tell you a little bit more about Dead Like Me and A Dirty Job and what I liked and disliked about these two pieces of media. Dead Like Me follows George, an 18-year-old girl who is cynical about life until she dies suddenly and becomes a Grim Reaper. She becomes responsible for harvesting souls of people at or slightly before the moment of their death. In this show, once you become a Grim Reaper, your outward appearance to the rest of the world is changed so that loved ones or acquaintances won't be able to recognize you. And there are also mechanisms in place to keep you from communicating with loved ones. But George has this kind of ragtag group of Grim Reapers who try to show her the ropes. Ironically, only in death does George really start to learn about life. We follow her through stumbles, through significant mistakes, and through her coming to terms with this new job as a Reaper that she doesn't really want to do, and coming to terms with her own death. What I love about this show is that it tackles real questions about mortality and family and grief. The show is funny and it makes fun of death in some ways, but it has something to say about mourning and loss and the unfairness of it all. So A Dirty Job follows Charlie, who is a neurotic man, and he becomes a Grim Reaper after the sudden loss of his wife, who dies shortly after the birth of their first child. While dealing with his grief of losing his wife, he also has to come to terms with this new role of having to collect people's souls and what this means for his life. He is now a death merchant. After someone dies, Charlie has to find their soul vessel, which is an item that will appear as glowing red to a death merchant. And it's their job to find the item and then sell it or give it to someone else that the item is destined to go to, someone who doesn't yet have a soul, is the general idea. So what did I not like about this book? So there are a lot of things that I really disliked. First of all, everything is treated as a joke. There is no room for nuance. There is no room for any sort of meaningful reflection. The characters are really one-dimensional, and every single character is very crass and sharp-tongued and snarky and crude. And so therefore, none of the characters are, if you see what I mean. Like, if everyone is constantly swearing or is constantly crude or snarky, then the swearing, the crudeness, the snarkiness loses its meaning. Those character traits just become utterly pointless. I thought the author was trying way too hard to be edgy, and it was just really overkill. I thought the author also relied on sexist and homophobic and racist stereotypes for most, if not all, of his characters. The term beta male appears about 10 freaking times per page, and if I ever see those two words next to each other again, I think I might puke. In the book, there are two widows that live in Charlie's building who are kind of helping Charlie take care of his new daughter. So one of them is Russian and one of them is Chinese, and their races are written purely for laughs. The Russian widow is constantly saying something is like bear. For example, Charlie's dogs, I think, like jump into a bathtub at one point and start like eating the suds, and then they're like burping or puking up suds or whatever. And this Russian woman is like, you can't have dogs taking bath and eating suds like bear. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. It was just like racial stereotypes for the sense of racial stereotypes. And it wasn't funny the first time she said like bear, and it definitely wasn't funny like the 22nd time she said like bear. And then there's his Chinese neighbor. Charlie keeps buying pets for his daughter, and they keep dying. And it becomes this running gag that this Chinese neighbor is like taking home these dead pets so that she can cook them and eat them. Yep, you heard that right. The joke is that a Chinese woman keeps bringing home lizards and hamsters and other pets and throws them into a pot and eats them. Super racially sensitive. So these two things about Grim Reapers obviously have like a ton of similarities. But when I really boil it down, what is the one thing that Dead Like Me has that A Dirty Job does not? It's heart. I would like to share just a few favorite moments from Dead Like Me. I've written down some like little scenes that I can remember really touching me and that I thought had a lot of heart. In the show, George deals with a lot of denial about the reality of being a Grim Reaper and the responsibility of that role. And her very first Reap is a small child. And she at first refuses to take this little girl's soul because it's just not fair. And it's a really poignant moment, and you feel for George and you understand her dilemma, and that this girl's soul has to be collected, but she doesn't want to do it. She feels like by doing that, she's the cause of this little girl's death, and it's a really heartfelt scene. Another scene that really sticks out in my memory is one where she is trying to tell her mother a story. So remember that George's appearance is different. People won't see her as George anymore. And she is desperate to have a connection with her mother, who is still alive. And she tries to tell her mother a story that only George would know about her childhood in order to prove to her that she's George. But she's not able to do that because the consequence of trying to tell that shared story is that George ends up losing that memory. That's what happens when you try to communicate with loved ones in this world, is that you start to forget the things, the times you shared with them. And it boils down to all we really had was memories to begin with. And like, I'm almost tearing up even thinking about that scene. There's also a scene I remember of George's mentor, Rube, visiting his baby girl, who is now in an old folks' home. And, you know, talking to her, obviously as this different persona, but talking to her and watching her as an old woman, this daughter whose entire life he missed because he died. So yes, Dead Like Me is also really crass and sarcastic, but it's also full of these genuine, tender moments. And I thought A Dirty Job was all crass without any of the heart. The few times that A Dirty Job did try to have some of these heartfelt moments, the book immediately snatches them away with an ill-timed one-liner, or by completely making that heartfelt moment irrelevant. Think along the lines of like finally coming to terms with death and saying goodbye to a loved one, and then undercutting that by having that person not really be dead. Like those kinds of things. You'll have like a little bit of a heartfelt moment, and then the book does something to make that pointless. So if this premise of like modern day Grim Reapers having to be people who still kind of like live in the real world and who have to go about daily life like the rest of us, but while trying to collect souls kind of like on the side of life, if that premise sounds like something you'd enjoy, then I would recommend skipping the book, A Dirty Job and watching Dead Like Me instead. But skip the Dead Like Me movie that came out after the series was done because it basically undoes every good thing that the TV show did. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have read or watched A Dirty Job or Dead Like Me, I would love to have a chat with you in the comments. Thank you as always for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.